man. Well, speaking of being cool, dude, I mean, you're part of the coolest thing in town. 5 million plus people tuned in for episode 1 of Young Rock. Before we get into that and so much more, how did you even get first involved with this? How did this begin?
Number one show on TV, brother. Number one show on TV right now, which is cool. It was actually brought to my attention today. I actually said number one show on NBC, and they're like, no, number one show on TV. So I was like, awesome, cool.
Wow, dude. Yeah. So how did this all get started for you, man? Where did your involvement with Young Rock begin?
Well, with Dwayne Johnson, really, but also with Brian Gewirtz, who was the head writer for WWE for many years, and is now an executive producer for $7 Production. So that's kind of where it started, man. I've done, to be honest, I sold a show to $7, and kind of were pitching it. And then I collaborated with them to pitch it around to different networks. So we started doing that together, and then the pandemic hit, and then everything kind of shut down. So then we were just kind of sitting there, and everything was shut down, and Hollywood was shut down, and which is weird. Whenever anything's kind of going on, if it's a recession or whatever, it never really affects me too much because of wrestling and Hollywood. Entertainment is always going, but this is the first time I've ever seen everything shut down. I mean, literally, all income shut down, period. You weren't doing any signings, you weren't doing any events, you weren't doing any shows, nothing. So I kind of was just sitting there for about 5-6 months, and then I got a call from Brian and said, hey, we have this show called Young Rock, and it is we can't film, we're ready to go, it's all greenlit, but we can't film in Los Angeles because of everything going on, everything's shut down. So we're going to Australia to film. And they go, do you know any wrestling coordinators in that area? And I'm like, okay. Well, first of all, a wrestling trainer and a wrestling coordinator for TV are two completely separate things. That's like apples and oranges. And I go, if you don't get the right guys, I go, yeah, I know one person. I go, me. And they go, oh, yeah. And they go, would you want to go? And I said, well, absolutely. And they go, oh, we weren't sure if you'd want to do this. So I said, absolutely, 100%. The only real problem was getting into Australia, because right now everything's shut down. You have to have like special permission from the Australian government, and you have to be like an essential worker there to be able to travel over there. So, they submitted me, and it was like, we want you really bad, but it's up to them. It's up to the Australian government. And we was lucky enough to get that okay. We went in there, I quarantined for 2 weeks, and then we got to work on this project. It was great.
Dude, that's crazy, man. So how engaged is Dwayne on this? Is he there every day on set? Is he working with you on putting the matches together? Like, how closely were you working with him on this thing?
So he's very, very involved. It's not like he just put his name on it and then said, okay, I'll see you in 2 months. No, he is super involved in Zoom meetings, and he's got final say on everything. So he was not in Australia, though, because of the fact that he can't quarantine for 2 weeks. He's got too much going on. And when you say quarantine, I was in a hotel room for 2 weeks. They police escorted me in, they closed the door, and then 2 weeks later they opened the door. That's some serious stuff. Yeah. So So he filmed all of his stuff in Atlanta. So after we filmed like the first episode or 2 episodes, our executive producer Natch, and the creator also, she flew back to Atlanta and did his stuff with Dwayne. So he was never actually on set, but Zoom meetings and stuff all the time. And that's kind of how everybody collaborated with him. Any question I had, I would just tell, Brian would text him right away, and we'd find out, Rocky wants to do this. I still call him Rocky. I still call him Rocky. Rocky wants to do this. Rocky wants to do that. So I'm like, okay, great. Let's get it done. And for me, it was really, I'm always passionate about the projects I do anyways, but this was hit home so much, because if you've seen the show, that is my life. That is exactly how I grew up, except for the running for president part. But that's exactly how I grew up. I mean, it was my uncles were Roddy Piper and the not the Wild Samoans, but it was other wrestlers. Andre the Giant. I remember meeting Andre at 7 years old. He was a family friend. And, different stories with my dad and my grandfather and Andre, my uncles and Andre. So that it's my life. And after seeing that first episode, I was like, this is my life. And not only that, it's my friend's project. It's my friend's life. It's Dwayne's life. So I was super passionate about this and really put extra attention to it.
You talk about how all these people, and that's what I thought was kind of interesting. When I was sitting here thinking of questions to ask you, Chavo, is because, like, yeah, you knew Andre and Roddy and all these folks, and here you are, you're in this position now where you're taking these actors and you're like getting them to be people that right? Like,
For sure.
how weird was that for you? How much did how much pressure did that put on you to deliver, kind of in that circumstance there?
You know what? I don't really look at it as pressure because it's something I've done my entire life. Wrestling I've done my entire life. And after, doing my first couple shows and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Because the first couple shows, you don't really know what you kind of get in there like, okay. And then you're just, testing the waters. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. I do know some of this stuff. Okay. And, some of the people are like, how do you know that, Chavo? I said, I don't know. I just know it. I grew up, third generation professional wrestler. It's been fed our family for 85 plus years. So we've seen, wrestling evolve and we've evolved with that. So the pressure, God, really wasn't there. I would tell some of the other actors and say, okay, this is how he would act. This is how he do it. Now that's their portrayal of the roles. I'm not on that camera, at least not yet, but doing that with them. So that's really them. I can give them advice all they want, but that's their idea of how they want to play that role. And of course, Dwayne right there he's got a lot of insight and is steering these guys in the right direction.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm just saying it's got to be a little odd, man. I knew another Andre walking around here. Like, you're not Andre, but you're all of a sudden you kind of are Andre. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, Big Matt. And I didn't know Matt, and I didn't know the John and Fosse who played the Wild Simones, or Kevin who plays Macho Man, who's coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Or Brett who played Iron Sheik, or Nate who played Junkyard Dog. I had never met them before, but literally the first day out of quarantine, I met these guys and it was like a family right from the start. I mean, right from the start, we all hit it off and everybody's so cool. Everybody's like really just, wants this show to succeed and wants their peers to succeed. So everybody's in each other's corners. It's really, really cool. It was like one big happy family. We were all staying at the same hotel. We'd all like go, hey, text each other and say, hey, we're going to go be barbecuing on the roof at 4:00. Okay, great. I'm offset at 2, and everybody bring meat and bring whatever we had over, and we just all barbecue and hang out, drink some beers. It was really, really cool environment.
That's awesome. And so all these actors, kind of similarly with Glow, did anybody have wrestling experience, or is this kind of starting from the ground floor where you're teaching actors how to bump and roll and do what they needed to do for the fights you were putting together?
No wrestling experience. Nobody. There was not a wrestler there except for a couple of the extras. We had, yeah, but all the main actors, no wrestling experience whatsoever. So it was us actually, me teaching these guys exactly what I could do. And we were on a limited time. We were on a time crunch. It wasn't like on Glow, I had these actresses for a whole month before we even started filming. So every day, 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, 2 classes a day, I was training these girls. This, we didn't have, we were on a time crunch. A lot of times I would have, doubled, maybe at least had a double there for these actors. We were in one city in Australia. And with that pandemic, with that lockdown and the quarantine, I had nobody to choose from. I mean, it was like, okay, guys, unfortunately, you guys are doing all your own bumps. You guys are doing all your own moves. You're going to see some super great stuff. And it's all the actors did everything because there were no doubles.
Yeah.
We couldn't have doubles there. If it was in LA, yeah, I would have had doubles for them just in case, like it was the actors doing everything.
Man, and how beat up? I mean, I would imagine there was probably some rough days on set for them having to kind of do that and throw themselves into it immediately like that with their bodies.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of icy hot being passed around. And I had some CBD cream that I had taken to Australia, not knowing it's illegal there. Okay. I had this CBD cream that you just rub on. There's no THC, it's just straight CBD, and it's really great. And I use it a lot of times for, joints and muscles and stuff. Well, we passed that around and I'd get texts like, hey, Chavo, I'm coming up to your room for some of that CBD cream, man. My knees are killing me, or my back is killing me. So that was getting passed around a lot.
So wait,